Okay, on to the president. Okay, so the president, the executive branch, have to figure out what authority the executive branch has in environmental law. Okay, so our constitutional authority from the executive comes from Article 2 of the Constitution, which I attached to the module for you to look at. It's a Word document. Um, but it's kind of fuzzy. There's not a lot of what we call enumerated powers set up for the president. I don't know why it doesn't just jump ahead for me. So they give them the commander in chief of the military. Obviously, they can issue pardons. Um, they advise. They are advised by executive departments. They, with advice and consent of Congress, they can issue treaties, appointments, judicial appointments. They are supposed to make a State of the Union speech. They are supposed to faithfully execute the laws of the country, and they have a power, the power to veto legislation, which actually doesn't come from Article 2. It comes from Article 1 when we are talking about Congress. So, what has been really the way the country has been governed and over the past few presidents is through this an executive order, and there is no executive order part of the U.S. Constitution, but it's kind of a practical thing. So it's an order by either a president or it can, if it's a state, by a governor that to implement either a statute or some part of an executive agency. So a lot of times they are talking about what's going on with the executive branch. So like an agency. Um, I have an example that of an executive order attached to the module where they're saying, okay, well, this is what is going to be the focus of our National Forestry Service. Because our lawmakers have a hard time making, making laws. The Now my dog wants to fetch. Okay, go get it. They use the executive orders to deal with the environmental issues. So Trump, undid a lot of environmental regs with his executive orders, and then Biden, 1 week into office, undid all of Trump's executive orders about the environment. So I attached an executive order on national forests that Biden issued to the module for you to kind of just like take a gander at. Um, so this is what I want you to do. Like, I know this is going to be our little quickest one, but I guess maybe we could just do it together. Let me get to the internet. So remember when we looked at govinfo.gov from the GPO website? We're going to go there again, and we're going to figure out how to find executive orders. Okay, so we're going to go to advanced search here, and we go executive orders. It doesn't say under P for president or E for executive. It says compilation of presidential documents. So it is under C. Okay, so let's just do date is after, let's do the past 13 months. So let's do, okay, and then we're going to just hit search. Oh, well, I guess I could have done something else. I wanted to add environment to it, but I'll do it on my limiting. Okay, so we have 1,200 records. So what do we look at? Person, current president, category. I'm going to go to see more, and I'm going to go to executive orders. Did I limit them? Yeah, so now I'm down to 28 records. Now, if I want to see, can I add another document here? Another word? probably should have done this. Oh, maybe I can go to subject down here. Okay. Oh, environment. This was the one that is attached to the module. So this one's strengthening the nation's forest. And where do I get to? Summary. Let me get a PDF of it. Is it going to open? There it is. Okay, so they're really talking about this policy, right? So the National Forest Service is an executive agency, so technically under the president. So they want to strengthen the forests. Kind of, this is just like your statement of intent here. Oh, there it is. And then, things that they're working on, the Infrastructure Act. And they're basically saying that they're going to just like plant a buttload of trees. Okay, so they're going to worry about wildfire risk and yeah, they're going to add 200 million trees. So this is kind of just like information to the agency, like you got to make this happen because the president, who is your boss, is saying that. So that's kind of how these, executive orders work. So we kind of did that. We kind of did it together. But you can always play with that GPO, the govinfo.gov, to see what, any kind of federal document. All right, so just as our little summary of where we get authority for federal environmental law, our interstate commerce law or clause, and well, I don't know, that really didn't go there. So we have our interstate commerce, we have our due process, we have our 14th Amendment, our Fifth Amendment, our Fourth Amendment, and then not really anything in the Constitution for executive orders, but they do it anyway. So then the last thing that we're going to talk about is environmental justice, which is like a really, really hot topic, or has been a hot topic for a while. And it's really an important topic. So we live in a world where people are like, yeah, we want factories, we want building, we want all of these things, but not where I live, right? Not in my backyard. So everybody's a NIMBY, right? So people living near a proposed facility that might have some sort of environmental impact, we don't want it. Not in my backyard. So starting in the 90s, this concept of environmental racism, that historically they locate dangerous environmental facilities in areas where there are minority populations or low income areas, right? So they kind of have a couple of different words: racism, elitism, or the concept of environmental justice to stop this practice, right? So in 1994, President Clinton issued an executive order requiring agencies to identify any instances of environmental inequities by race or economic status to help alleviate this practice. And really what's happened in response to this is that um, local governments are starting to just do public forums, give people an opportunity to speak out before these facilities are built or things are changed. It's just a little graphic. Look at this: 56% of the population near toxic waste is people of color. People of color have 95% of their claims against polluters denied by the EPA. They have a 38% higher exposure to nitrogen dioxide, and they're twice as likely to live without potable water or modern sanitation. So it's really like a terrible, terrible statistic here. Just historically, and some of these, you can look at these in the book, but the Love Canal, which is up by Niagara Falls. So there was they call it the Love. I think a guy's last name was Love. He kind of envisioned this luxury area up by Niagara Falls, but this was back in like the 20s, and then the stock market crash happened, and then they sold that property called Love Canal to basically like a toxic dump. And then so they polluted on there, for 30 or for years and years. And then what was this like? What was the name of the company? I'm looking in the book because I can't remember. Oh yeah, so and then so in the 50s it was called the Hooker Chemical Company, and they used it as a dump. And then they just, when they were done, he just covered it with soil and offered it to like the school district and said, "Hey, we're going to sell you this land for $1." And the whole little town called Love Canal was built on that little dump site. So 20 years later, there's rain and like these waste, these drums, right? Like think of big barrels, metal barrels full of waste, started seeping out. Um, they'd pop up in backyards. Um, it was just like terrible, trees turning black. Um, kids had like chemical burns on their hands. It's just like a terrible, terrible thing. Um, and Love Canal was kind of the beginning, one of the inspirations for CERCLA. Um, but Love Canal was a working class town, a lower income town, and kind of started bringing into this like idea of environmental justice. So Erin Brockovich, I don't know if you guys have seen Erin Brockovich. It's a great movie. Julia Roberts got an Academy Award for it, where she played a paralegal. You guys are going to be paralegals, so it should be inspiration for you. But she was a paralegal dealing with people who their water was contaminated, and they were kind of rural, poor people. And they kind of used a class action type strategy to stop the polluting in the water and give people compensation for their injuries. So, remedies that they can do are class actions gives a louder voice, right? So you have somebody, maybe everybody's not thinking about hiring an attorney, but if one person does and they can bring in other people to the class, it really makes the companies take heed, because they could be very, very expensive. Um, and It's been effective. They call these like environmentally unfriendly facilities LULUs, right? Locally undesirable land uses. So nobody wants a Lulu in their backyard. So before even like if you're at one of these meetings where the citizen groups are like, "Hey, we don't want this," the company who is potentially building this might give either the town or individuals some sort of economic reward for allowing this. Like, okay, we want this, but we're gonna take care of you. They might promise mitigating measures, extra great filtration systems, um, some sort of remedies, or um, like a pool of money if something happens. Um, and, might promise testing of water and air on a periodic basis with information available to the community, things like that. So they're trying to really just reduce the opposition by a community to this being built there, give the information, and like really kind of reduce their liability and lessen the burden on the community. So it is like an ongoing issue. One of the things about the environmental racism aspect is that bringing suit against these placements of Lulus near Black and brown communities i- is that they've been unsuccessful bringing lawsuits under civil rights laws, under 1983 laws. So, example, this East Big Twigs versus Macon County um, court found that no. So this wasn't a civil rights claim. It was just kind of a racial discrimination claim. But the court said no, they didn't find that there was any intent to discriminate, and they didn't find any disproportionate discriminatory impact. And in these two cases here, the landowners tried to bring a civil rights claim under environmental laws, um, and it really wasn't. It hasn't been successful, and they say that this is not the intention of the environmental laws, to have separate 1983 causes of action for them. So that is our lecture. Let me. So the last thing that we haven't gone over is that there's a discussion board on like the environmental racism issue, which there's a little podcast to listen to and some questions to ask about that and answer about that. And then the other big news. Ooh, boy, let me get all the way to our module. Week 4. Is that your first test is next week. So study, look for the dates that and times it's open. It's open for a few days. And do your best. It'll be open book, but you will be timed, and you will only have one opportunity for it. So you don't have the opportunity to open it up, close it, go back to it. So make sure you have enough time to sit through the whole thing the first time you open it. And so that's why all the due dates are for the week after the test. Okay, so have a great week. Good luck on the test, and reach out to me if you have any questions.